What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here doing another movie review. This time on one that is a childhood classic. I saw a lot of action movies growing up that probably shaped uh, my genre of movies, I guess. um, so yes, we are talking about Vin Diesel's The Chronicles of Riddick from 2004. Yes, for those who don't know, I'm sure everyone knows who Vin Diesel is. Probably most well known for his Fast and the Furious movies. But prior to those movies, or in between filming those movies when they first started coming out, he did this series. I've talked about one of my first reviews was Chronicles of Riddick: Dark Fury, which was an animated feature. Like I think it's maybe like half an hour long animated feature. I believe directed by Peter Chung, um, who was one of the artists on the original Rugrats, and he was also the creator of Eon Flux, who I've also done a review on. So check those out if you're interested. Um, so Dark Fury took place after the events, like directly after the first movie. The first movie being Pitch Black. I think I said I talked about Pitch Black as well. So Pitch Black came out in like 2000. It was, I have to give you guys a little bit of backstory before I hop into the story of this movie. Um, yeah, so Pitch Black was a sci-fi, I guess a somewhat sci-fi horror movie that came out in 2000. It was very well received, to my knowledge. I mean, we got a franchise out of it. It was original, but you could tell maybe it kind of pulled from like Alien and pulled from other sci-fi horror stories. But it was very good, very rewatchable. Um, and like I said, I did a review on it, so if you're interested, check it out, or just watch a trailer and get your own feel of if it's a movie you want to check out or not. Um, so from Pitch Black, which Vin Diesel's character Riddick was in, he was, yeah, I would say, excuse me, he was one of the main characters, but the whole movie didn't focus on him. So from, this movie being the sequel, or like I said, Dark Fury technically being the sequel to Pitch Black, the whole series centered around Vin Diesel's character. Because I guess, his character was really popular in that movie. And some people were kind of off. I think some people were kind of off-putted by that. Like they would have wanted a proper follow-up to Pitch Black, or maybe series. Maybe it didn't need a sequel at all. Instead of just making the whole series focus on Vin Diesel's character. Me personally, I don't care. I like Pitch Black for what it is, and I like the Riddick, the remainder of the series being about Riddick. I like those movies as they are as well. I mean, they're just all fun sci-fi action movies. Uh, so what is the story of this movie? Also, this was directed by, I believe, David Towie, however you say his name. And like I said, this came out in 2004. A lot of my favorite movies from this period came out around the same time. Peter Jackson's King Kong, Chronicles of Riddick, Kill Bill series, Van Helsing, Hellboy. I might be missing I, Robot with Will Smith. I think I did a review on. I think that came out in 2004. Of Men in Black, and that's a little bit older, but yeah. So like I said, a lot of my favorite action movies came out around the same time, which is crazy. So like I said, in this movie, Riddick is pretty much an anti-hero. He is a convict. He's been in hiding. Also, like I said, this is a franchise, so we have gotten video games. Escape from Butcher Bay, which I think Butcher Bay was a prison that Riddick was sent to and he was escaping from. An Assault on Dark Athena. I can't remember specifically where the games tie into the movies. There was also a mobile game called Scorched Trials or something, like a stealth game. I played it. Of course, that's the only one I played. And the mobile game's cool. It's all right for what it is. Again, that's cool. We've gotten one animated movie, 3 live action movies, 3 video games. I think there's been some comics. So like I said, this has been a nice little sci-fi franchise that anybody could hop into and, have a good time. Um, I don't know. I don't think I really consider the series mainstream because we were supposed to have. I know. So I can get back to the plot of the movie. We were supposed to have a movie or another movie that I think has been in the works for a couple of years. I don't know if it'll come out this year. I don't know, but I believe the new movie is supposed to be a prequel. Mm. Focusing on Riddick when he was younger, maybe. I'm kind of meh about that, so hopefully that project will come out. But like I said, he is that he knows of. He is the last of his kind. He's a Furian, so I guess he isn't human. He's an alien, I guess. The Furians were wiped out by um, I'm not sure if they were a race or a. I'm not sure if you can really call them a cult, or I guess you can call them an empire, kind of like with Star Wars. I guess you can call them an empire. Necromancers. The leader of the Necromancers uh, took out Riddick's whole race because he got I forgot what it's called, like the Oracle. An Oracle told him that he would be defeated by a Furion. So, of course, out of fear, he took them all out. Um, how Riddick survived, kind of spoilery territory, so you can kind of read up on that if you're interested. But like I said, a lot of stuff happens. He gets tracked down by some bounty hunters who are trying to collect the bounty on his head. He gets sent to a prison. One of his allies from Pitch Black, I think he purposely got caught so he could find this ally, so she could and she ends up helping him on his mission. Keith David's in this, veteran black voice actor, veteran black actor. He was in Pitch Black as well. Carl Urban's in this. Carl Urban played Billy Butcher on The Boys. He played Judge Dredd. He was in the original Doom movie with The Rock, which was based off a video game. He plays, I guess he kind of plays an antagonist to an extent. So I guess a lot kind of happens. Like I say, he gets sent to the prison looking for his friend. The friend ends up helping Riddick escape along with some other people who were held up at the prison. The action set pieces are really cool and entertaining. He gets a final battle with the leader of the Necromancers, who was responsible for killing his race. And we do get a good finale. It's kind of a tragic, kind of a bittersweet kind of finale, where he, kind of a spoiler. Well, I guess I won't spoil what happens to Riddick at the end, but it kind of made it like, well, dang, where do we go from here? You know, like how can you follow up the ending of Chronicles of Riddick? But like I said, it's a very good sci-fi series. It's very entertaining, very action oriented. If you like Vin Diesel and like to see him kick butt and be badass, then you'll probably like this movie. Like I said, this, to me, Chronicles is a childhood classic for me. I can literally watch this, anytime and not really get tired of it, honestly. Like I said, I saw this one the most growing up. I didn't see Pitch Black till until I was like a young adult. There was a follow up to this, which was just called Riddick. Yeah, original. That came out in like 2014, 2012, 2013. I guess why not? To finish the series, I guess I'll talk about the third movie, or fourth movie if you don't count the animated one. So that might be the next review. Stay tuned for that. Also, another childhood classic of mine was the Matrix trilogy. I mentioned the Matrix. I've talked about the Animatrix. A certain Matrix video game. Yes, there were a few video games I've recently started playing. So when I get around to beating that, I'll definitely talk about that because I want to give my 2 cents about that video game. But like I said, it's a fun series for what it is. Hopefully that next movie will happen. We'll get a follow up. But yeah, like I said, I'm not sure if it's available for free on streaming. You'll have to check. But, like I said, maybe watch the trailer, start with the first movie, and work your way to this one. But yeah, like, comment, share, and stay tuned for more. What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here, doing another mini bonus game review. This time on, I guess, my first time reviewing a mobile game. So, yeah, okay, touching a new category. So this we'll be talking about Riddick, the Merc Files. I mentioned in my Matrix video, go watch that if you haven't seen it, on my Matrix Path and Neo review that I had recorded this, I think maybe last week, like or over the weekend or something, and for whatever reason, my my post wasn't saved in my drafts properly. Maybe that was a glitch or something. So at first I wasn't going to bother to re-review it, but I'm like, yeah, well, might as well, since I did, enjoy playing this game and I wanted to talk about it. So this was a mobile game that was made around the same time that the last Riddick movie came out. We don't know who, not familiar with the Riddick series, sci-fi action adventure series. The first movie was kind of more of a standalone movie called Pitch Black, which you could tell was kind of inspired by like Alien and other sci-fi horror-oriented movies or stories or whatever. And from Pitch Black, the rest of the series kind of focused on Vin Diesel's character, Riddick, who was like an anti-hero, criminal type character, really cool character. Of course, I'm sure everyone knows who Vin Diesel is, in the Fast and Furious movies and a whole bunch of other stuff. This is probably, like I said, one of my favorite characters. And to my knowledge, I think I mentioned the last movie I talked about, Riddick, from 2013. I believe Vin Diesel now owns the rights to the franchise, to the character, so that's pretty cool. And supposedly we're supposed to get another movie at some point, so hopefully that'll happen. I would love to see another movie. But like I said, this is a mobile game, mobile like stealth action game. This is created by Tegan Studios and let me see, Gaming Corps. Apparently, Tegan Studios was a gaming studio owned by Vin Diesel, so that's pretty cool. But to my knowledge, I don't know if they ever made any more games outside of this or whatever the case was. But apparently, there were two versions of this game. And if you look on the Amazon Play Store, unfortunately, this game got a lot of bad reviews. I think, I'm not sure how much it was. I think currently it's like $2, $3. There's like 16 levels. Like I said, so I'll touch up on the positives. I like the graphics. I like the concept. Story wise, there's not much of a story. Basically, there are bounty hunters who are trying to hunt and capture Riddick, and the game mostly focuses on him evading the bounty hunters, strategically taking them down. Of course, hiding in the shadows. If you take someone out, you can like drag their body to the shadows so their teammate doesn't see them and is alerted that you're in the area. When you take someone out, you can take their weapon. And if you want to, so you can, depending on how many enemies are left in the level or how many enemies there are in general, if you take someone out and take their weapon, you can rather go in guns blazing, just shooting up everybody and, making the chances of you getting caught or getting K-worded higher, or you can just still continue to take people out stealthily. So I do like the game kind of gives you that option how you want to go about, beating the level. Rather you want to shoot up everybody or you want to take everybody out, in a more ninja stealthily manner, which is cool. It adds a little bit more to the game. Like I said, the graphics, the gameplay, what little sound design there is fine. Throughout the levels, Vin Diesel or Riddick might say some cool catchphrases or say some cool things, which is neat. It adds to the experience. It adds to the game. Unfortunately, like I said, it's kind of very simplistic. I mentioned earlier that there were apparently two versions of this game. One that was more kind of simplistic, and one that kind of had like challenge modes and a couple other modes. You had the ability to, there was like a message, not necessarily a message board, but you had the ability to connect with people, other players, and you could upload videos of how maybe you beat certain levels or something like that. So that was pretty cool. So apparently the last update was like September of 2014. So cool, the game lasted for what, 2 years? Since the Riddick movie, I believe, came out, like I said, in 2013. So again, it's cool for what it is. If you're a fan of the character of the series, I don't think it's as bad as what people may have maybe said when it came out. Now my gripes, would have been nice if we had like some boss fights or something, like a boss fight, or in the movie, not kind of a spoiler, we did see him fight some native alien creatures to the planet that he was stranded on. It would have been cool if we saw those creatures in the game as enemies to fight or something. Just add, instead of it just being all just bounty hunters, it would have been nice to add a little bit more variety to the enemy types than just bounty hunters. Um, there is like a little animated trailer that was made for the game, which was cool. So like I said, it has a few negatives, but I honestly I can look past the negatives. Like I said, I played it already. I'm not sure which version I played, rather the version that had the different challenge modes or the version that was just more simplified and straightforward. But I would definitely play it again. Absolutely. Again, you could beat it in a day. It's a mobile game. Um, it's kind of a time killer. Um, but yeah, like I said, it's cool. Apparently, like I said, there are a few console games: Assault on Dark Athena and Escape from Butcher Bay, which I think may take place before or during the events of the movies, which is cool. I heard those were, I think those are like first person games, so I heard those were pretty solid. So I would like to check those out if I have access to them. Like, so I'm not sure if any of those were made for PlayStation or anything like that. Um, so if they were, like I said, I might check those out. Maybe do a video on those. There was a Java mobile game made based off the second movie, Chronicles of Riddick, which came out in 2004. Not sure if that's worth going back to. Um, so there's a few, like I said, there's a handful of video games, and for the most part, at least the console ones hold up well. But like I said, if you're interested, check it out. There's a app, I believe, on the Play Store where you can download old mobile games and not worry about attracting a virus or something to your device. So like I said, if you want to go that route, cool. I think that's how I played. Yeah, that's how I played it. I downloaded an app and I was able to download it from a website and play it like that. Um, yeah, it's cool. It's fine for what it is. As far as next videos go, I'm not sure. Usually I write out a list of ideas or movies or topics or whatever I want to talk about on the page. Um, I'll probably do another update video in the future. I will, like I said, there's another mobile game that at this point, I think the mobile game is going on 10 years old. I could be wrong. It's based off a shonen anime, probably one of the most, for the most part, probably one of the most well-known anime in the world. I'm a big fan of the creator of this anime, and they made a mobile game around like 2015, maybe. Um, and I used to play it on and off, and I'll probably talk about that when I decide to do that video, do that review. I used to play the game on and off, and it got to the point where it's like, it's a really good game, and it always has, good content. It's always getting updates and stuff like that. Like, let me just play this regularly. Like, I'm probably gonna play. I played a little bit of it last night, and I'm probably gonna play a little bit of it later today. I play this game at least a couple times every week. So. But like I said, this particular anime mobile game, in my opinion, is one of the best mobile games on the Play Store. So I will, again, that might be the next review. Why not? Why not? Probably the next review. This particular anime, I have talked about it once before, but I talked about a live action Netflix movie based off this anime, which I actually really enjoy. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I did enjoy it when it came out. Which, I mean, that doesn't narrow it down, because that video is like some years old now. But stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that mobile game review. But yeah, like, comment, share. Like I said, check Riddick the Merc Files out if you're interested. And peace, you guys. What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here, doing another movie review. This time on an unintentional horror movie. And when I say unintentional, I'll try to explain that in towards the end or throughout the review. But we are looking at The Stuff from 1980. 1985. My apologies. This came out in June of 1985. So okay. As I've said before, I love 80s horror. If you've been following me for a long time, I always say I love the horror movies that were made during the 80s era. I just like the way those movies looked back then, and the type of cinematography and practical effects and all that really cool stuff. So I just have a very big fondness for 80s horror. I have a whole playlist of 80s horror movies on YouTube. Um, which are always fun to pick out something I haven't seen before. Like, oh, this looks nice. Like, this looks interesting. I'm gonna give this a watch. You'd be surprised how many gems there are hiding on YouTube. Um, yes, this is directed by Larry Cohen, who sadly passed away roughly 5 years ago. But he made a handful of other well-known B-ish movies. But I think the intent with the stuff was like kind of like a commentary on the food industry, the food business. But it was marketed as a horror movie, and if you Google it, it's under the horror category. You can kind of look at this as a horror movie. Like, it has horror elements in it. But I kind of agree with Mr. Cohen. It's not necessarily a straight up horror movie. But the best example I could give you, and this is free. This is free on YouTube. This is free on streaming. I'll say that right off the bat. It's like if you took The Blob, an invasion of the body snatchers, which I still haven't seen that. I still haven't seen that. But if you could tell from the title, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it's about aliens who are taking over people's bodies, or They Live. It's another good alien movie. If you took those three movies and mix them together, you kind of get the stuff. You can see the tagline behind me. If you see the stuff in stores, call the police. If you have it in your home, don't touch it. Get out. The stuff is protected. The stuff is a product of nature, a deadly living organism. Is addictive and destructive, and it can overcome your mind, take over your body, and nothing can stop it. Yes, so I'm not sure if it's ambiguous if the stuff is an alien. I always theorize that it was an alien. It came from space or something, or if it was just an organism that was manifested here on Earth. I don't know. I think it's kind of ambiguous. But basically, company discovers the stuff, makes it into an edible food product. Like I said, it's a living organism. It has the ability to, if you eat too much of it, it'll have the ability to pretty much take over your mind and your body, and basically turn you into a drone, essentially. And say if you came in contact with someone who's been affected by the stuff, and I guess they try to attack you or whatever, and you shoot them or fight or punch, like, yeah, attack them, shoot them, whatever, like they'll just like turn into putty, like kind of like what you see on the illustration behind me. Their body will dissolve and all this stuff will come out of them or whatever. So the practical effects, the puppetry, and the actual sentient stuff itself, all that was really well done. All that was really well done. The cast did a good job. There's a few faces I recognize, but again, I'm not going to get into the cast. The only person I will mention, since it is still Black History Month, is Garrett Morris. He was, I believe, the first black actor to be on Saturday Night Live way back when it started. He was on Martin. He was on the Jamie Foxx show. He was on Two Broke Girls. I mean, he's been in a lot of stuff. And his character, he had his own ice cream company in the movie, and he was working alongside our main character, whose name escapes me at the moment. I think his name was Mo. Yeah, I think it was Mo. So, Mo was short for something. Mo is I think he worked for the Food and Health Administration or something, or he was sent by the government or something to spy on the food industry and the stuff company to see, what's really in it, and is it dangerous and all that stuff. So he's like an undercover agent, and he's trying to get to the bottom of why this product is so popular and why is it making people act weird and different and all that crazy stuff. And Garrett Morris's character ends up working alongside him briefly in the movie, which was cool. It's cool to see him when he was younger. Um, so we have another main character who's a little boy, which it's funny. Like realistically, like you kind of think like realistically, how would this situation affect a child, right? Like it's him and his dad, his older brother, and his mom. He sees the stuff moving in the refrigerator one night, and he's like, I'm not eating that. And there's a scene where he's in a grocery store and he sees it, and he's like knocking it out of people's hands and throwing it all on the taking it all off the shelf and throwing it on the floor. And it's kind of a funny scene. Like to be a kid and know like what's going on, but you're practically powerless. Like you can't really do anything to stop it from happening. Is just a messed up just kind of scenario when you think about it. Um, but kind of a spoiler, his family gets taken over, and they try to force him to eat the stuff, and he runs away. They're chasing after him. Mo randomly shows up and ends up saving him. So I don't know if he's. I guess at that point he's technically an orphan. Did Mo adopt him? I don't know. It's never really fully explained. It's kind of like like I said, you're watching. You're like now what? Like he can't go back home. His family is they're not human anymore. Like how do you even recover from that? So I just thought that was funny. That was humorous, but um we do get a conclusion. We do get a solid conclusion. But it kind of ends with there's still remnants of the stuff out there in the world. So this possibly could happen. This situation possibly could happen again. I kind of wish, I mean, this does feel like a solid one off, but I also feel like, like, hey, this could have gotten a follow up. They could have made the stuff too and did some different cool things. Maybe we could have got like muck monsters made out of the stuff or something. That would have been interesting. Um, I'm trying to think. Uh, but this movie, and I feel this way about a lot of other movies from this era, like where the concepts were really good. The concepts were there. The idea for the movie was there. Like for example, in the New Year's Eve slasher movies, like who would have thought making a slasher movie on New Year's Eve that takes place on New Year's Eve was a like that was a very, in my opinion, a very clever idea. Like I never would have thought to have done that. Um, like a lot of those movies would do well if they had a proper remake, proper people behind the project. I think those type of movies would make good remakes, and the stuff is one of them. I think the stuff could have a good remake. Like I said, some of the acting is a little meh. Some of the sequences are a little dated looking. Of course, it's '85, but the story and the characters and the special effects when you see the stuff try to attack our main characters or burst out of people or whatever the case may be, like all of that was very entertaining and appealing to look at. And um like I said, it's a good movie. It's definitely a good movie. If you just kind of want something different, it's in the horror genre. It's considered to be in the horror genre. It's you, like I said, you like those alien invasion type of movies. You like The Blob. You like I said, Body Snatchers, They Live, those type of movies. Then you can definitely vibe with the stuff. You could definitely vibe with this movie. Um, but yeah, like I said, it was good. It was good. And again, it's just kind of one of those, like it's a good '80s movie, good '80s horror movie. It's entertaining, and it's going to keep you invested. And like I said, you just kind of like, how is all this going to come to a close? Like, how are they going to conclude the story and save the world essentially? Um, so yeah, that is it. Go check it out on YouTube for free or streaming. Like, comment, share, and stay tuned for more. Peace, you guys. What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here, doing another movie review. Yeah, we can say movie review. Anime movie review. Full 3D CG anime movie review. Yes. This is Visitor from 1998. Said full 3D computer graphics figure animation movie. Cool. Yes. Once again, I try to, when I started my page, I try to cover obscure pieces of content. I would put this in the obscure category. I had no idea this existed. Um, there's a a YouTuber who did a video on early CG animation. If you all are interested in her channel, I will put the name of it in the comments. Um, and in the video, she mentioned this movie or animated feature. I was like, Visitor, what is this? Okay, cool. So originally, I did a video last year on Alice, which came out in 2000, 1 year after I was born. And that I was under the impression that Alice was the first CG animated movie. No, apparently Visitor was the first CG animated movie since Alice came out in 2000 and Visitor came out in 98. So they're what, like a year or 2 years apart from each other. Cool. This is a sci-fi movie. It takes place in 2099, I believe. Same, ironically, Spider-Man 2099. Um, that's pretty cool. Yes, this was directed by. Hopefully, I won't butcher these people's name. Yeah, directed by Asushi Takuda and written by Kazunori Ito. Cool. I think they did a good job with what they were trying to do. Again, 98, CG, 3D CG animation was a big deal back then. Just kind of think about that. I know it's probably hard to believe. Think about that time period. They were really trying to push the limits of, could we tell a full-on story using this style of art or animation. So that concept alone is what appeals to me, that you attempted to do something creative and original using new technology at the time. Was the execution well? Well, um, right off the bat, so I can give us a story. I like the voice cast. I believe there's an English dub. There is an upload on YouTube. That's how I watched it. Watch it on YouTube. Say that right off the bat. Watch it on YouTube. Just type in Visitor 1998 and you should find it. Um, I believe there's an English dub. Some scenes in the YouTube upload were in English, and then the rest of the movie was in Japanese with the English subtitles. So I don't know if there's an English dub. So you're just gonna have to work with what's available. Um, the voice cast did great. They did fine. In my opinion, it's kind of a slow burn. Um, like I said, the animation itself, it's okay. If you find early 3D, CG animation, if you find that appealing, then you'll probably gravitate to this. Because like I said, I really, really liked Alice, but I do feel like Alice just kind of had a stronger narrative, stronger story, in my opinion. So apparently, like I said, it's the year 2099. Something happens on Mars or something on a different planet. Some object hits the planet, clashes with the planet, and it's fine. The object is coming towards Earth. It's finding its way towards Earth. Um, so our two female leads, I can't remember their names at the moment, but them and the government are trying to find a way to, I guess, destroy this object, which turns out to be kind of spoilery, a living entity, dimensional time traveling entity or something. Um, and they're trying to find a way to stop it and prevent it from colliding with Earth. Um, so, like I said, just kind of give you a brief synopsis of what it's about. So, it's a sci-fi movie. Cool. Like I said, it's kind of a slow burn. It's very dialogue heavy. We really don't get the climax or the action part of the film until towards the end, which again isn't a bad thing. Um, like I said, I just wish I had more to say. It's okay. It's fine. It's unique for what it is. Like I said, Alice. If you want to check out I worked hard on that video. Check out the Alice review. Um, yeah, like I said, Alice had a stronger narrative, and Alice also dealt with time travel. Um, but like I said, Visitor is cool. Visitor is cool. Like I said, if you like early CG animation, if you find this type of stuff interesting or entertaining, maybe if you are an animation major and you want to look at this, for a reference, or you're, you know, learning how to use 3D animation, you want to, like I said, use this as to give you an idea of what it would be like or something, cool. Like I said, 3D anime um, is kind of a niche genre, I would say. There was a Final Fantasy movie that came out in the early 2000s. Spirit, I can't remember the name of it. Final Fantasy, it might have been Spirit something. I've seen it, but yeah, I might do a video on that one, because that Final Fantasy movie, I don't think it did well. It was weird. That was a weird time for movies, but um that movie is kind of another example. Like, it's animated, it was 3D, it was an interesting concept, but maybe the execution wasn't that good. Um but like I said, Visitor is cool. Like I said, it's an hour and 24 minutes. Um like I said, if you like these type of movies, check it out. Like I said, I definitely recommend Alice, which I believe is also on YouTube. So, in my opinion, watch Alice first. Check out my review for it first and get an idea, and then see if that's something you'd be interested in watching. Um, but yeah, yeah, Visitor is cool for what it is. Like I said, I like watching. Me personally, I like watching obscure cool content. So, I like it. If it's not your thing, that's fine. But yeah, like I said, it's on YouTube. Check it out. Like, comment, share, and stay tuned for more. Peace, you guys. What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here, doing another, excuse me, I guess a 70s sci-fi horror movie, or horror suspense. I honestly don't know what genre. I guess you could, excuse me, you could put this in the sci-fi horror genre, or maybe an early, well, I don't know if I could say early take, but uh, yeah, a take on the sci-fi genre. Yeah, this is a weird one. This is I can't do it. SSSSS, which is supposed to. This is a snake movie. This is a sci-fi snake kind of horror movie. That came out in like 1973. So it's a 70s horror movie. Some 70s horror, some has aged well, and some has, not has aged well. Um, but the name of the movie draws attention. Like, oh, okay, cool. The sound that a snake makes, like, that's cool. It says terror is ready to strike. Um, yeah, I know the cover looks a little generic. There were a couple different box art covers, but I chose this one because I thought it popped. Um, the cast for this, probably people you wouldn't recognize, honestly. Um, One of our main characters, which kind of a spoiler, is kind of our victim. I believe he was one of the original members of the A Team TV show with what's that actor? With Mr. T. Cool. Um, I've seen years ago. I saw the original A Team. I saw the movie, the remake movie, which came out like 10 plus years ago, and the remake movie was pretty good as well. So that's cool. Like I said, him doing this little movie before he, when he was younger, before he was on the A Team. But the rest of the cast, like I said, I recognize a few other faces, but like I said, I'm not really going to talk about them because I doubt you all will really be interested in the cast of this movie, this somewhat mediocre sci-fi movie. Um, so this was directed by Gerard K. Kowalski or something like that. I might have misspelled their name. Uh, I don't know what other movies they did, but like I said, they kind of fumbled with this one. Like, this movie had good ideas, and some of the practical effects and like the creature design, makeup, costume, all that stuff, that was good. That was for the set for 1973. That was well executed. But the overall story and the finale again might kind of go into spoilery territory because for what a 40-year-old 40-50-year-old movie, forgettable movie. um like I said, that those elements are what bring the movie down. Like I said, the story and the ending. So I saw this on Spenguli. I mentioned before, Spenguli is a TV program that airs on MeTV every Saturday. Spenguli is a horror host. He's equivalent to like Vampra or most famously Elvira. He's kind of a male version of Elvira, basically. And every Saturday, he and his group of other horror themed characters would showcase a horror movie. Sometimes they choose some really good ones, like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which I've talked about, and other times they choose some that are not so good, like Sis. So what is the story of this movie? Oh boy. Okay, buckle in. Uh, so we have a scientist. I think I'm not sure if he's like a college professor, high school professor, whatever. He's doing some type of shady experiments with animals and snakes and stuff like that. Um, One of his students, being the actor I mentioned earlier, who would go on to be in the A Team, um, or maybe they're in college. I can't remember. He's like I say, he's like a broke college student. He needs to find a job, whatever. And the professor says, "Well, you can be my assistant." Well, the professor had a previous assistant that went missing, and we kind of implied what happened to the previous assistant, and again, kind of spoilery territory. Uh, Excuse me. The professor has a daughter. I think the daughter becomes the lab assistant's love interest or something. Um, and like I say, he's doing some weird experiments where he's trying to I guess mix human DNA with animal DNA, some crazy stuff like that, and he ends up succeeding. Again, kind of a spoiler. Um, the kills in this movie, again, it's the 70s, so I'm not sure what the budget was, but the kills they were there, they existed. A handful of people get killed, um, including our antagonist, which again, kind of spoilery territory. Um, but what are the positives I can say about this movie? Because like I said, before I get to that part, the ending, it felt unfinished. Honestly, it felt unfinished. It felt like there wasn't a proper resolution. It kind of felt like, like that was it. I mean, we needed a little bit more to I wouldn't say flesh out, but we needed a little bit more to make this story come full circle. Um, like we didn't like with certain older horror movies, you kind of get like it just kind of like we see the final scene and then it just rolls the credits. We don't get a follow up or anything like that. And in certain movies, I feel like like we should get that follow up, especially if the characters have gone through this terrifying experience. I kind of want to see that they end up being all right in the end, like a follow up scene showing us that they survived or whatever, survive the ordeal. We really didn't get that with this one, which I was like, that's it? That's how it ends? Like, oh, that was kind of garbo. Um, but I mean, like I said, cast did fine with the material they were given. Like I said, the creature, kind of like, so I won't spoil, but the snake creature costume makeup effects looked really cool and unique, especially like I said for 1973. So I do like that element, that aspect. Um, like I said, it's there, it exists. If you want to see like an early animals sci-fi horror movie, it's this. Knock yourself out. Um, it's funny. There was another snake movie that I saw, but I think it came out in the '80s called Spasms. I might talk about that, but like again, that's low key kind of obscure, and we really don't. I don't think that entire movie we really get a good look at the snake, the snake creature in that movie, which is dumb because it's a freaking snake movie and we really don't get to see our monster. So I don't know. Spasms, like so Spasms, kind of a slow burn. I may do a review on that. Like I said, I haven't seen it in a couple of years, so stay tuned. I might talk about Spasms at some point. Um, yes, I can't say it. Like I said, it exists. It exists. It's watchable. I mean, if you're really interested, you might be able to find it on YouTube. I don't know. Might be able to find it on streaming. Like I said, play it in the background while you do other things, which is what I kind of like to do with certain pieces of media. Um, but yeah, go check it out if you're interested. I'm sure there's probably better snake movies, snake or animal monster horror movies in general, like Arachnophobia and Anaconda and um. Oh, I forgot. Off topic, I mentioned Spasm. There's another movie I saw. I'm gonna have to watch it again. It was on my YouTube horror movie YouTube playlist. Um, yeah, yeah, where it's like a animal testing lab or something, and a creature gets loose, and we have a group of characters who are all in this building trying to get out, and one of the main characters was sent there to, I guess, exterminate the creature. Um, Again, that's a good one. I like that one. I have to see I have to see that again so I can do a proper video on it. But I'm just rambling. Like I said, check it out if you're interested. Uh, it exists. Like, comment, share. Stay tuned for more. Peace, you guys. What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here, doing another 80s horror movie, sci-fi horror movie review. This time on Forbidden World, a science fiction horror in excuse me, a science fiction horror in deep space. Part alien, part human, and excuse me, all nightmare. I apologize. Oh, yes, Forbidden World. This was good. I believe this was a Roger Corman production. I mentioned Roger Corman a couple times before. I believe he passed last year. He was like his maybe mid late 90s, so he lived a very long life. A lot of people consider him the king of B movies. So cool. So he has a very extensive biography of work and movies and all that good stuff. So, safe to say, I'm a fan. I'm a Roger Corman fan. Um, but yeah, so apparently, I don't know how true this is. On Google, doing a little touching up on the information about this movie, it said this was a prequel to Galaxy of Terror, which is another Roger Corman sci-fi movie, I believe. I've talked about Galaxy of Terror. Again, that's a really good one. Both has Sig Hayes and Robert Englund, two horror icons before they became well-known horror icons. Of course, Robert Englund played Freddy Krueger. Sig Hayes played Captain Spaulding in, I think, House of a Thousand Corpses. But anyway, yeah, so again, Galaxy of Terror is a really good one as well. But this one was cool. This one was cool. Yeah, so the cast. I'm not. I was only familiar with one face. One face I recognized, and I believe the actor's name was Ray Oliver, who a lot of people, a lot of horror connoisseurs such as myself would probably know Ray from the first Child's Play movie. He played the witch doctor who taught Chucky how to transfer his soul into another being or object or whatever. And Chucky, if you haven't seen Child's Play 1, Chucky took one of Ray's voodoo dolls and used it to break his bones, essentially. Pretty brutal scene. So, that's pretty cool. It's like, oh, I recognize that face. Like, that's the guy from Child's Play 1. So cool. And yes, being a black man, being a black character in an 80s horror movie, he almost makes it to the end. But surprisingly, he doesn't get K-worded by the creature. He goes out in a different way, which was very unexpected and felt a little Like, yeah, man, was that really necessary? But you'll see what happens when you watch. I guess kind of a spoiler. The black character does die, does die. Damn. Well, yeah. So the rest of the cast did great. I like the chemistry. Again, it was maybe like seven, six people, maybe six, seven people, or maybe like 8 people and a robot. Cool. Um, so what's our story? We have a research station. I'm not sure what planets they're on. I don't think it's Earth. No, we have a research station. So a group of scientists and a couple other employee workers who have different duties. They were trying to create a way to prevent food hunger in the galaxy or something, and they end up um, creating a creature. Not this creature. There was a cover. There was a box art that is like a screenshot taken directly from the movie. It has the actual creature in it, but I didn't want you all to be spoiled by what the creature looked like, so I decided to just stick with this, I guess, generic cover art that they used. So the creature does not look like that winged insect looking thing behind me. No, it honestly looked more like a xenomorph, kind of like a mix of a xenomorph mixed with maybe like a spider or something, crab or spider crab or some shit like that. So hmm. Creature kind of favors a xenomorph. Interesting. Another example. Um, Creature, which is another good '80s sci-fi horror movie. Um, that one, the creature in that one, I don't think that was a Roger Corman production. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. Um, that alien looked like xenomorph, but I think I talked about creature. That might get a re-review. I might get a re-review. But yeah, like I said, we have the people on the base. They accidentally create the creature. It gets loose. So our main character is, I'm not sure if he's like I wouldn't say he's a bounty hunter. I don't know if he's like a police officer. I'm not exactly sure what his jurisdiction is, but he is brought there to help them locate it and potentially destroy it. And of course, hijinks ensues. The creature is intelligent. It kind of outsmarts them, and they find out what the creature was planning to do, and all types of crazy stuff. So again, we've kind of seen this setting before. We saw it in Alien. They did it in Creature. They kind of did it in Galaxy of Terror. We've seen this setting. We have a handful of characters. We're stuck in a space with our antagonists of the movie, and we have to watch them survive and find a way to escape or destroy the entity before everyone is K-worded, or whatever the case may be. We've seen it before. If you like sci-fi horror, you've seen these what's the word I'm looking for? We've seen this concept. Excuse me. We've seen this concept before. That's not a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. If you like these movies like me, then you can appreciate that. I'm not going to spoil who all survives and who dies. I won't spoil that. I already spoiled one character who I told you does end up getting K-worded, but not in the way you would expect. And again, we do get a solid resolution. The way they defeat the creature is kind of like, it's good. It's entertaining. It's like, really? Like that just felt a little anticlimactic, I guess. And again, like what my previous movie about the snakes, it's just kind of like it kind of ends like we don't really get a follow-up scene, which would have been nice. Now there is nudity in this. There is a full-on sex scene, which is up to your interpretation if you feel like it's tasteful or unnecessary. I mean, I was like, oh, okay. Like, okay, I guess it adds to the story. Okay, fine. I wasn't bothered by it. It was just kind of there, it was just kind of there. Um, and then we get another scene where we only have two female characters, where our one female character is like in a sauna, sort of. And she decided to, yeah. And that kind of felt a little unnecessary. Well, I guess in total we get like three nudie scenes, and this after the first one, which is a sex scene, the second two felt kind of unnecessary, but I don't know. Like I said, if you're put off by that, I would say just maybe skip over those scenes because they do and they don't add a whole lot to the story. So, like I said, if that's like a turnoff to you, just skip over those scenes and cut back to when they focus on the characters trying to, stop the creature. Um, but outside of that, yeah, it's a good watch. It's a fun watch. Again, you get invested into the story and you want to see how all this comes first full circle and who's going to make it to the end and just the excitement of knowing like oh shit, what's going to happen, like that's a lot of fun. um and like I said, I just adore these movies. This is nice to just sit down. For me, at least, it's nice to just sit down, don't have to worry about anything. Sit back, chill, and watch a good '80s horror movie. Like that. That's my cup of tea or my can of soda, whatever analogy you want to use. But yeah, yeah, it's good. I'm not sure if it's on YouTube. I know it's free on streaming. Exemu Play, so you can watch for free. That's how I watched it. I recommend it. Like, comment, share, and stay tuned for more. Peace, you guys.